Ever wondered what it's like to be born into one of the most powerful royal families in history, surrounded by castles, crowns, and the weight of an empire? Meet Princess Margaret of Connaught, a woman whose life was a dazzling blend of glamour, duty, and secrets waiting to be uncovered. From her grand beginnings in Queen Victoria's court to her pivotal role in shaping European royalty, her story is packed with intrigue, romance, and moments that changed history. Why did kings and princes vie for her hand? What hidden strength made her a star in a world of rigid traditions? Hit that play button to dive into the captivating life of a princess whose legacy still echoes across continents. And trust us, you won't want to miss a single detail of this royal tale. Early life and royal lineage, 1882 to 1905. On a frosty January morning in 1882, the grand halls of Bagshot Park in Surrey, England, hummed with quiet anticipation. Servants moved swiftly through the elegant corridors, their footsteps muffled by plush carpets, as the household prepared for a momentous occasion. In a richly appointed room, Princess Louise Margaret of Prussia, wife of Prince Arthur, Duke of Connaught, gave birth to her first child, a daughter named Margaret. The event was no mere family milestone. It was a significant moment for the British royal family, for this newborn was the granddaughter of Queen Victoria, the indomitable monarch whose reign stretched across continents, her empire a vast tapestry of colonies and influence. Prince Arthur, Victoria's third son, bore the weight of his mother's legacy with pride, his military bearing and devotion to duty reflecting the discipline of the Victorian court. His wife, Louise Margaret, brought her own prestige, her bloodline rooted in the powerful Hohenzollern dynasty of Prussia, a lineage that connected her to the heart of European royalty. The birth was a triumph, and Queen Victoria, ever the meticulous chronicler, recorded the moment in her diary with a blend of warmth and wry humor. After a labor lasting 5 hours, she wrote, Lewisham, her affectionate nickname for Louise Margaret, had safely delivered a girl, her 18th granddaughter. Always girls, Victoria quipped, her pen betraying a hint of exasperation, yet she quickly added, Thank God both are healthy. The nursery at Bagshot Park would soon grow livelier, as Margaret was joined by a younger brother, Prince Arthur, born in 1883, and a sister, Princess Patricia, born in 1886. Together, this trio would navigate the gilded yet demanding world of royal life, their bonds forged in the shared experience of privilege and expectation. Royalty was synonymous with tradition, and Margaret's early months were steeped in the rituals that defined her family's status. On March 11, 1882, barely 2 months old, she was carried into the private chapel at Windsor Castle, a sacred space where the walls seemed to whisper centuries of history. The baptism was a grand affair, presided over by the Archbishop of Canterbury, the highest ecclesiastical authority in England, whose presence underscored the event's gravity. The chapel's stained glass windows cast a soft glow over the assembled royals, their velvet and silk attire a testament to their rank. The infant princess was christened Margaret Victoria Charlotte Augusta Nora, a name that wove together threads of her illustrious heritage. Victoria paid homage to her grandmother, the queen whose name was synonymous with an era. Charlotte and Augusta echoed the names of earlier royals, anchoring her to the Hanoverian line. And Nora, a softer, less conventional choice, hinted at individuality in a world bound by protocol. The baptism was more than a religious rite. It was a diplomatic spectacle, a carefully orchestrated display of the ties binding Europe's royal houses. Margaret's godparents were a constellation of royalty, each name a marker of power and alliance. Queen Victoria herself stood as the primary godparent, her presence a towering symbol of the child's place in the dynasty. Emperor Wilhelm I of Germany, Margaret's great-grandfather, through her mother's Prussian lineage, was too far to attend. So the German ambassador, Count Münster, stood in his place, his diplomatic credentials lending weight to the occasion. Crown Princess Victoria of Germany, Margaret's aunt and the eldest daughter of Queen Victoria, sent her sister, Princess Christian of Schleswig-Holstein, to represent her. Margaret's maternal grandparents, Prince and Princess Friedrich Karl of Prussia, were represented by Prince Alfred, Duke of Edinburgh, and Princess Beatrice, both siblings of Prince Arthur, their presence reinforcing the Anglo-Prussian connection. The Duchess of Cambridge, Margaret's great-aunt, was represented by her granddaughter, Princess Louise, Duchess of Argyll, a woman known for her artistic flair and sharp wit. Albert Edward, Prince of Wales, and Margaret's uncle, destined to become King Edward VII, was present, his charm and easy manner a contrast to the ceremony's formality. Finally, Prince Charles of Prussia, another great-grandfather, was represented by Prince Leopold, Duke of Albany, the youngest of Victoria's sons. This assembly of proxies and royals was no mere formality. It was a living map of Europe's interconnected monarchies, each godparent a thread in the delicate web of 19th-century alliances, where family ties were as strategic as treaties. Margaret's childhood was a whirlwind of splendor, shaped by the rhythms of royal life. Bagshot Park, the family's primary residence, was a magnificent estate, its sprawling lawns and ornate interiors a fitting backdrop for a princess. The house, with its ivy-clad walls and high-ceilinged rooms, was a sanctuary of sorts, filled with the warmth of family life. Children's laughter, the clink of teacups, the rustle of silk dresses. Yet the family was rarely still. They traversed the British Isles and beyond, their travels dictated by the demands of Queen Victoria's extended dynasty. Summers were often spent at Balmoral, the Scottish retreat where the air was crisp, and the Queen indulged her love of tartan and Highland traditions. Winters brought them to Windsor Castle, its ancient towers a symbol of the monarchy's endurance. There were visits to Osborne House on the Isle of Wight, where the sea breeze mingled with the scent of roses, and countless stops at the estates of relatives, dukes, duchesses, and cousins who would one day wear crowns. These journeys were more than leisurely trips. They were exercises in reinforcing the family's unity and influence, each event a chance to display the monarchy's strength. Margaret, Arthur, and Patricia grew up in this world of constant movement, their lives punctuated by state banquets, garden parties, and the occasional military parade, where their father, Prince Arthur, often took center stage as a respected army officer. Despite the whirlwind, Bagshot Park remained their anchor, its familiar rooms a refuge where Margaret could play with her siblings, read quietly by a fire, or listen to her mother's stories of far-off Prussia. It was here, in the quiet moments, that the siblings forged a bond that would carry them through the complexities of their royal roles. As Margaret entered her teenage years, she emerged as a figure of fascination across Europe. By her mid-teens, she and her sister Patricia were celebrated as two of the continent's most captivating royals. Their beauty was not just a matter of appearance, but a blend of poise, intelligence, and the indefinable allure of royal blood. At balls and state dinners, they moved with the grace drilled into them by governesses and court protocol, their gowns shimmering under chandeliers, their smiles disarming even the most jaded courtiers. From London to Vienna, whispers followed them. Speculation about their futures, their suitors, their potential to shape the political landscape. They were, after all, granddaughters of Queen Victoria, raised to embody the virtues of the Victorian era: modesty, dignity, and devotion to duty. Yet there was something more, a spark, a quiet charisma that set them apart. Margaret, with her refined features and thoughtful gaze, and Patricia, with her lively spirit, were the talk of Europe's courts, their names mentioned in the same breath as those of eligible princes and kings. Their uncle, King Edward VII, who ascended the throne in 1901 after Victoria's death, saw in them not just cherished nieces, but vital assets in his diplomatic arsenal. Edward was a master of the royal marriage game, a strategist who understood that a well-placed match could secure alliances in a Europe rife with tensions. Germany, Russia, Austria, Hungary, these were the powers he sought to bind closer to Britain, and he dreamed of marriages that would place Margaret and Patricia on foreign thrones. A king, a crown prince, or at the very least a high-ranking noble, these were the matches he envisioned, unions that would fortify Britain's position in a world where rivalry simmered beneath the surface. For Edward, love was a secondary consideration. The stability of empires was paramount, and his nieces were key to his vision. Margaret's adolescence was marked by moments that bridged the personal and the public, each event a step toward her role as a princess of consequence. In March 1898, at the age of 16, she underwent her confirmation in the private chapel at Windsor Castle, the same sacred space where she had been baptized. The ceremony was a solemn rite of passage marking her transition into adulthood within the Church of England and the royal family. Dressed in a simple white gown, her dark hair neatly arranged, Margaret stood before the Archbishop of Canterbury, her voice steady as she affirmed her faith. The chapel was filled with family members and courtiers, their eyes fixed on the young princess, who carried herself with a quiet dignity that belied her youth. This was no mere religious ritual. It was a public declaration of her readiness to embrace the responsibilities of her station, a moment when the weight of her title became palpable. Years earlier, at the tender age of 11, Margaret had tasted the spotlight as a bridesmaid at the wedding of her cousins, the Duke and Duchess of York, on July 6, 1893. The ceremony, held at the Chapel Royal in St. James's Palace, was a spectacle of royal grandeur, a celebration of love and dynasty. Margaret and Patricia, dressed in delicate gowns of white lace, walked behind the bride, their steps measured, their presence a symbol of the monarchy's continuity. The wedding united the future. King George V and Queen Mary, in every detail, the bride's intricate veil, the guests' glittering jewels, the military bands playing outside, was designed to dazzle a society hungry for pomp. For Margaret, it was an early lesson in the art of royal performance, a glimpse into the world she would inhabit as an adult. Yet beneath the glamour, Margaret's life was shaped by constraints. The world of the Victorian court was one of relentless scrutiny, where every gesture, every word was weighed for its impact. As a princess, she was expected to embody the ideals of her grandmother's era: grace, modesty, and an unwavering commitment to duty, while navigating a family that saw her as both a beloved daughter and a tool of diplomacy. Her uncle's ambitions for her marriage were a constant undercurrent, a reminder that her future was not entirely her own. Would she marry a foreign prince, as Edward hoped, to secure an alliance with a rival power, or would she find a way to assert her own will, to balance the demands of the crown with the quiet desires of her heart? There was a strength in Margaret, a resilience beneath her polished exterior that suggested she was more than a pawn in the intricate game of royal politics. Her beauty and charm made her a star in Europe's courts, but it was her inner resolve that hinted at a story yet to unfold. second fateful marriage with Gustav Adolf, 1905. In January 1905, the intricate machinery of royal diplomacy was in full motion, orchestrated by King Edward VII of Britain, a monarch renowned for his strategic brilliance in forging alliances through marriage. His vision was ambitious yet precise, to secure advantageous matches for his family that would strengthen Britain's ties across Europe. To execute this grand plan, he entrusted the Duke and Duchess of Connaught, his brother Prince Arthur and sister-in-law Princess Louise Margaret, with a delicate mission. Accompanied by their two daughters, Princess Margaret and Princess Patricia, the Connaughts embarked on a meticulously planned European tour, their sights set on finding suitable husbands for the young princesses. The first stop was the radiant court of Portugal, a kingdom bathed in Mediterranean warmth and steeped in regal tradition. King Carlos I and his elegant French-born queen, Amélie of Orléans, welcomed the Connaughts with unparalleled hospitality, their palaces aglow with the promise of a historic union. The Portuguese court buzzed with excitement, their hopes pinned on the two Connaught sisters as potential brides for the royal princes, Luis Felipe, the charismatic Duke of Braganza and heir to the throne, and his younger brother, Prince Manuel, a quieter but equally eligible figure. The Portuguese had grand expectations. A marriage between one of the Connaught princesses and a Portuguese prince would not only elevate the prestige of their monarchy, but also solidify diplomatic bonds with Britain. The court spared no effort in showcasing its splendor. Sumptuous banquets filled the air with the aroma of roasted delicacies, while glittering balls saw ladies in flowing silk gowns twirling under chandeliers. The clink of crystal glasses and the soft strains of orchestral music underscored every event, each moment carefully crafted to impress. Margaret, at 23, carried herself with a refined grace, her poised demeanor and keen intellect making her a standout. Patricia, 2 years her junior, exuded youthful charm and vivacity, her laughter brightening the formal gatherings. The Portuguese court watched eagerly, whispering about which princess might become the future Queen of Portugal. Luis Felipe, with his confident charm, and Manuel, with his understated elegance, were presented as ideal matches. Yet despite the opulence and the weight of expectation, no romantic connection emerged. The chemistry that the Portuguese so desperately hoped for failed to materialize, and the dream of a royal engagement faded like the morning mist over the Tagus River. With polite farewells, the Connaughts prepared to depart, their mission in Portugal a dazzling but ultimately fruitless endeavor. Undeterred, the family continued their journey, their next destination the sun-drenched lands of Egypt and Sudan. Cairo in 1905 was a city of mesmerizing contrasts, where the ancient grandeur of the pyramids and sphinxes coexisted with the vibrant chaos of bustling souks and the refined elegance of European-style salons. It was a crossroads of cultures, a place where East met West and where diplomats, adventurers, and royalty converged in a whirlwind of social and political intrigue. The air was heavy with the scent of jasmine and sandalwood, the streets alive with the calls of vendors and the clatter of horse-drawn carriages. For the Connaughts, Cairo was a place of both duty and discovery, a chance to engage with the British colonial elite and explore the possibilities of new alliances. It was here, amid the city's intoxicating blend of history and modernity, that fate intervened in the most unexpected way. Enter Crown Prince Gustav Adolf of Sweden, the 22-year-old grandson of King Oscar II and heir to the Swedish throne. Gustav Adolf was a figure of quiet distinction, his reserved demeanor and thoughtful nature setting him apart from the more flamboyant royals of his time. Educated and introspective, he carried the weight of his future responsibilities. With a calm resolve, yet beneath his composed exterior lay a depth of emotion waiting to be stirred. His presence in Cairo was no coincidence. The ever-calculating matchmakers of Europe had identified him as a prime candidate for a strategic marriage. Their plan was clear: pair Gustav Adolf with Princess Patricia, whose lively spirit and effortless charm seemed perfectly suited to complement the young prince's temperament. To facilitate this, a seemingly casual gathering was arranged at one of Cairo's grand venues, a glittering ballroom where the elite of Europe and Egypt mingled under the glow of crystal chandeliers. Both Margaret and Patricia were present, their presence carefully choreographed to appear incidental. Gustav Adolf, unaware of the matchmaking scheme, arrived expecting little more than polite conversation and diplomatic pleasantries. But fate, as it often does, had other ideas. In a moment that seemed to suspend time itself, Gustav Adolf's eyes met Margaret's across the crowded ballroom. The flickering light of the chandeliers cast a golden halo around her, and the hum of voices faded into a distant murmur. Margaret, with her striking presence, her auburn hair swept elegantly, her eyes alight with intelligence and warmth, captured his attention in a way he hadn't anticipated. It wasn't Patricia, the intended match, who stirred his heart, but Margaret, whose quiet strength and genuine kindness radiated effortlessly. For Margaret, the moment was equally electric. She had endured countless formal introductions, each one a reminder of her duty to marry strategically. But this was different. Gustav Adolf's steady gaze, his understated confidence, and the sincerity in his smile sparked something deep within her. Their connection was immediate, undeniable, and mutual, a spark that ignited with the intensity of a desert storm. As they spoke, their conversation flowed with an ease that belied the formal setting, their words weaving a bond that neither could ignore. The planned match with Patricia was forgotten. This was a love that neither protocol nor diplomacy could orchestrate. Cairo, with its vibrant energy, became an unwitting accomplice in their romance. The city's bustling markets, where merchants hawked spices and silks, mirrored the excitement of their burgeoning feelings. The Nile, its waters shimmering under the moon, seemed to reflect the dreams taking shape in their hearts. They stole moments together amid the whirlwind of social engagements, sharing quiet conversations on balmy evenings and exchanging glances that spoke volumes. One such evening, during a lavish dinner hosted by Lord Cromer, the British Consul General, the stage was set for a pivotal moment. The dining room was a vision of opulence, with long tables adorned with silver candelabras, their flames casting a warm glow over the assembled guests. The air was filled with the rich scents of spiced lamb, fresh figs, and fine Bordeaux, while the soft clink of cutlery and the murmur of multilingual conversation created a symphony of elegance. Gustav Adolf, seated near Margaret, felt the weight of the moment. His heart raced as he realized he could no longer delay. In a quiet corner of the room, as the other guests were distracted by the evening's festivities, he took Margaret's hand, his voice steady but filled with emotion. He asked her to marry him, his words carrying the weight of a future shared. Margaret, her eyes shimmering with tears of joy, accepted without hesitation, her voice soft but resolute. The moment was electric, a private vow sealed amid the grandeur of the British consulate. The room, sensing the shift, erupted in warm congratulations, and the Duke and Duchess of Connaught, witnessing their daughter's radiant happiness, beamed with approval. This was no mere diplomatic victory. It was a love match that transcended the expectations of both courts. The unfulfilled hopes of Portugal were a distant memory. This was the union that would define their futures. The narrative leaps forward to June 15th, 1905, when the historic St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle became the stage for a wedding that captured the imagination of Europe. This was no ordinary venue. Its ancient stone walls had witnessed centuries of royal ceremonies, from coronations to marriages, each one etched into the annals of British history. The chapel was transformed into a floral paradise, with cascades of white roses, lilies, and delicate ferns framing the altar, their fragrance mingling with the faint scent of beeswax from the candles. The pews were filled with a dazzling array of royalty, kings, queens, and nobles from across the continent, their jewels glinting in the soft light filtering through the stained glass windows. Diplomats and dignitaries whispered in anticipation, their eyes fixed on the aisle where Princess Margaret would soon appear. She did not disappoint. Margaret was a vision of ethereal beauty, her gown a masterpiece of Edwardian craftsmanship, its ivory, silk, and intricate lace shimmering with every step. The train, embroidered with delicate floral motifs, flowed behind her like a river of stardust, drawing gasps from the assembled guests. Her bridesmaids were a constellation of royal elegance. Princess Patricia, her sister, glowed with pride, her smile reflecting their close bond. Princess Beatrice of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, a cousin, exuded quiet sophistication. Princess Victoria Eugenie of Battenberg, another cousin, brought regal poise, and Princess Mary of Wales, the future queen, completed the ensemble with her youthful grace. Each wore a gown of soft pastel hues, their presence a testament to the interconnected web of European royalty. The ceremony was a symphony of tradition and emotion. The organ's soaring notes filled the chapel, accompanied by a choir whose hymns echoed through the vaulted ceiling. Margaret and Gustav Adolf stood before the altar, their vows exchanged with a sincerity that resonated with everyone present. Gustav Adolf, resplendent in his Swedish military uniform, its gold braiding catching the light, gazed at Margaret with undisguised adoration. His usually reserved demeanor softened, his love for her evident in every glance. The Archbishop of Canterbury, presiding over the ceremony, spoke of unity and devotion, his words weaving a narrative of hope for the couple's future. As the final blessing was given and the couple was pronounced husband and wife, the chapel erupted in applause, the joy of the moment palpable. The guests from the British royal family to the representatives of Sweden and beyond raised glasses of champagne in a toast to the couple's happiness, their union a bridge between two nations and a beacon of love in a world often governed by duty. With the ceremony behind them, Margaret and Gustav Adolf set sail for their honeymoon, bound for Adair Manor in County Limerick, Ireland. This was no ordinary retreat. Adair Manor was a romantic idyll, its neo-Gothic architecture and sprawling grounds offering a sanctuary from the demands of royal life. Nestled in the heart of Ireland's lush countryside, the manor was surrounded by emerald fields, ancient oak trees, and the gentle flow of the River Meg. Ivy clung to the stone walls, and the gardens bloomed with roses and lavender, their scents mingling in the crisp Irish air. For Margaret and Gustav Adolf, this was a chance to step away from the weight of their titles and simply be a couple in love. They spent their days wandering the estate's winding paths, hand in hand, their laughter echoing through the quiet glades. Evenings were spent by the grand fireplace in the manor's oak-paneled drawing room, where they shared stories, dreams, and quiet moments of intimacy. The local villagers, charmed by the couple's warmth and lack of pretense, shared tales of seeing them stroll through the nearby village, Margaret's smile brightening even the gloomiest of days. It was a time of pure, unadulterated joy, a fleeting pause before the responsibilities of their future beckoned. On July 8th, 1905, the couple arrived in Sweden, ready to embrace their roles as the future king and queen. Their new home was Sofiero Palace, a magnificent gift from Gustav Adolf's grandfather, King Oscar II. Perched on a gentle rise overlooking the Öresund Strait in Helsingborg, Sofiero was a vision of elegance, its white facade gleaming against the backdrop of the sea. The palace was surrounded by expansive gardens, their rolling lawns and vibrant flower beds, a canvas that would soon capture Margaret's imagination. Her passion for horticulture, already evident in her love for the gardens of her childhood home, would transform Sofiero's grounds into a botanical masterpiece, earning her admiration across Sweden. The palace itself was more than a residence. It was a symbol of their new life together, a place where they could build a future free from the rigid formalities of Stockholm's royal court. Inside, the rooms were adorned with elegant furnishings, their high ceilings and large windows flooding the space with light. Margaret and Gustav Adolf settled in with a sense of purpose, their love providing a steady anchor as they navigated the expectations of their new roles. The wedding gifts they received were a testament to the significance of their union, each one a treasure that spoke to the grandeur of the occasion. Among the most remarkable was the Connaught tiara, a breathtaking creation of diamonds set in intricate filigree, its delicate design catching the light with every movement. Crafted as a wedding gift, it was more than a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of Margaret's new role as Crown Princess of Sweden, a legacy that would endure in the Swedish royal collection for generations. The tiara's sparkling brilliance became a hallmark of her public appearances, a reminder of the love that had brought her to this moment. Her parents, the Duke and Duchess of Connaught, also contributed a dowry of £25,000, a staggering sum in 1905, equivalent to millions in today's currency. This financial gift was more than a gesture of support. It was a recognition of the union's importance, a bridge between the British and Swedish crowns that underscored the alliance's diplomatic weight. Third life of the Crown Princess of Sweden, 1905 to 1920. In 1907, Margaret of Connaught, a British princess born into the refined world of the British aristocracy, stepped onto Swedish soil to embrace her new role as Crown Princess of Sweden, affectionately known to her adopted nation as Margareta. Her father-in-law had just ascended the throne as King Gustav V, a pivotal moment that elevated her husband, Gustav Adolf, to Crown Prince and positioned her as Crown Princess. The transition from the familiar elegance of British high society to the formal, tradition-bound Swedish court was no small undertaking. The language was entirely new, with its melodic yet complex structure. The customs were steeped in centuries of Scandinavian tradition, distinct from the British ways she knew, and the expectations placed upon her as a royal were immense, demanding both grace and gravitas. Yet Margaret faced this daunting shift with an infectious enthusiasm that quickly distinguished her. She threw herself into learning Swedish, dedicating long hours to mastering its grammar, pronunciation, and subtleties. She didn't stop at language. She immersed herself in Sweden's history, poring over texts about its Viking roots, medieval monarchs, and modern developments, while also studying its cultural traditions, from festive midsummer celebrations to the quiet resilience of its people. Within just 2 years, she was speaking Swedish fluently, not merely as a formality, but with a natural ease that endeared her to those around her. This linguistic triumph was more than a personal achievement. It was a declaration of her commitment to becoming an integral part of her new homeland, not just a ceremonial figurehead. Margaret's desire to connect with Sweden went far beyond the palace walls. She wasn't content to learn about her adopted country from books or courtiers. She wanted to experience its essence firsthand. To do so, she embarked on discreet journeys into the countryside, often traveling incognito to avoid the trappings of her title. Dressed simply, she wandered through rural villages, chatted with farmers about their crops, and listened to locals share stories of their lives. These unassuming excursions allowed her to feel the pulse of Sweden, from the rugged beauty of its forests to the warmth of its small communities. She marveled at the sweeping landscapes, the crisp air, and the resilience of a people shaped by long winters and fleeting summers. These experiences grounded her, giving her a deep personal understanding of the nation she now served, and they forged a bond with its people that no amount of formal training could replicate. Initially, some Swedes perceived Margaret as reserved, perhaps a reflection of the formal demeanor expected of royalty or the weight of her new responsibilities. But this impression was swiftly dispelled when they saw her in her element. Margaret was a passionate sports enthusiast, and her love for physical activity revealed a vibrant, approachable side that shattered any notions of stiffness. During Sweden's long winters, she embraced the season with gusto, gliding down snowy slopes on skis with a radiant smile, her movements fluid and confident. She'd lace up skates to join lively ice hockey matches, her competitive spirit shining as she darted across the ice, blending grace with determination. When summer arrived, she was equally active, stepping onto tennis courts with a racket in hand, her swings precise and powerful, or strolling across green fairways, golf clubs in tow, her natural ease drawing admiration. These moments weren't just about sport. They were a window into a woman who lived with joy and authenticity, unafraid to shed the formality of her title for the thrill of the moment. Her athleticism won over those who might have seen her as distant, earning her a place in their hearts as a princess who was as relatable as she was regal. At the heart of Margaret's life in Sweden was her marriage to Gustav Adolf, a union that stood out as a genuine love story in an era when royal marriages were often strategic alliances. Their bond was rooted in deep mutual respect, shared laughter, and an unspoken understanding that made them true partners. Gustav Adolf had grown up under the stern influence of his mother, Queen Victoria, whose Prussian-inspired upbringing imposed a rigid, almost militaristic discipline on him. This strict environment shaped a man who was dutiful but often constrained by formality. Margaret, with her warm British sensibilities, brought a refreshing contrast to his world. Her natural charm, described by Infanta Eulalia of Spain as carrying the elegance of St. James's, infused the Swedish court with a lightness it sorely needed. She blended sophistication with an approachable warmth, hosting gatherings that felt more like lively British salons than stiff royal affairs. Her influence softened Gustav Adolf, bringing out a lighter, more joyful side of him. Their connection was electric, evident in the way they shared private moments of laughter or worked together on shared passions. Margaret's love for Sweden was profound. She embraced its culture, its people, and its future with open arms, and Gustav Adolf's devotion to her was equally deep, creating a partnership that was both a personal haven and a powerful force within the royal court. As a mother, Margaret's dedication was unwavering. She and Gustav Adolf welcomed 5 children, each of whom she nurtured with a hands-on approach that defied the conventions of her time. In an era when royal children were typically raised by governesses and staff, Margaret insisted on being deeply involved in their lives. She spent hours playing with them, reading stories, and teaching them about the world. ensuring they grew up with love, discipline, and a sense of connection to the world beyond the palace. Her eldest, Prince Gustav Adolf, born in 1906, would later become the father of King Carl XVI Gustav, Sweden's current monarch. In 1907, Sigvard was born, later known as Sigvard Bernadotte, Count of Wiesborg, a title he took after relinquishing his royal status. Ingrid, born in 1910, would go on to become Queen of Denmark, mother to Queen Margaret II and King Frederick X, cementing a legacy that spanned nations. Prince Bertil arrived in 1912, followed by Carl Johan in 1916, who would live to be the last surviving great-grandchild of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. Margaret's parenting philosophy was rooted in her belief that her children should be more than royal figureheads. They should be grounded individuals, capable of empathy and engagement with the world around them. She taught them to value kindness, curiosity, and responsibility, traits that would define their lives and contributions. Margaret's passions extended far beyond her family, shaping a legacy that was as creative as it was impactful. She was an avid artist, deeply inspired by the Impressionist works of Claude Monet, whose vibrant landscapes and play of light resonated with her own artistic sensibilities. Photography was a particular passion, and she had an extraordinary talent for capturing the fleeting beauty of her surroundings. Whether it was the serene Swedish countryside, her children's playful moments, or the intricate details of a flower in bloom, her photographs were more than snapshots. They were carefully composed works of art, reflecting her keen eye and sensitive spirit. She also loved to sketch and paint, filling notebooks with delicate drawings and watercolors that captured her impressions of the world, but gardening was where her heart truly lay. Alongside Gustav Adolf, she transformed the grounds of Sofiero Palace into a breathtaking English-style garden, a project that became a family endeavor. The children joined in, digging in the soil, planting roses, and learning the rhythms of nature under their mother's guidance. These gardens were a masterpiece, blending formal design with the wild beauty of English landscapes, and they reflected Margaret's vision, patience, and love for creating beauty from the earth. Her pride in these gardens inspired her to share them with the world. In 1915, she published Our Garden at Sofiero, a book filled with her own photographs and illustrations, capturing the splendor of her creation. 2 years later, she followed it with From the Flower Garden, another work showcasing her artistic talents. These books were more than personal achievements. They were sold to raise funds for schools that offered child care and home economics training, supporting women and families across Sweden. Her creative output was always tied to her commitment to social good, a reflection of her belief that beauty and purpose could go hand in hand. Decades later, in 2000, her love for gardening was honored when British rose breeder David Austin named a vibrant, fragrant Rose the Rosa Crown Princess Margareta in her memory. This rose, with its warm apricot hues and rich scent, remains a living tribute to her enduring influence, blooming in gardens around the world. When World War I broke out, Margaret's resolve and compassion came to the forefront. Sweden's neutrality placed it in a delicate position, and Margaret's British heritage set her apart from her mother-in-law, Queen Victoria, who harbored sympathies for Germany. Undeterred by the political complexities, Margaret found ways to contribute meaningfully. She established a sewing circle, formerly named the Crown Princess's Central Depot for Home Guard Clothing and Equipment, which collaborated with the Red Cross to produce essential clothing for Swedish soldiers. From warm undergarments to sturdy uniforms, Her initiative ensured troops were equipped to face the harsh conditions of war. When paraffin shortages plunged soldiers into darkness, she organized a nationwide candle donation drive, rallying communities to provide light for those on the front lines. In November 1917, she launched a program to train young women for agricultural work, a critical effort to sustain Sweden's food production during the war's economic strain. Her compassion extended beyond Sweden's borders as she became a lifeline for families desperate for news of loved ones. She worked tirelessly to connect with prisoner of war camps across Europe, particularly advocating for British soldiers, helping families find answers about those missing or wounded in the chaos of battle. That same year, Margaret founded the Margaret Collection for the Poor, a charity drive to support Sweden's most vulnerable citizens. Her efforts were not just about addressing immediate needs. They were about laying the foundation for a stronger, more equitable society. While her in-laws, King Gustav and Queen Victoria, clung to traditional monarchical values and resisted change, Margaret embraced reform with open arms. Her progressive outlook resonated deeply with a nation on the brink of transformation. As Sweden took its final steps toward full democracy by the war's end, her popularity and forward-thinking approach helped ease political tensions, ensuring the monarchy remained a unifying force in a rapidly modernizing world. Her ability to bridge tradition and progress made her a beloved figure, a royal who was as much a reformer as she was a custodian of heritage. Fourth, sudden death and heartbreaking departure, 1920. In the early hours of May 1st, 1920, the grand halls of Stockholm's royal palace lay shrouded in the stillness of a Nordic dawn, the city outside barely stirring. At precisely 2 o'clock, a profound silence fell over the royal household as Princess Margaret, Crown Princess of Sweden, slipped away from the world at the tender age of 38. Her death was a cruel shock, a swift and merciless blow dealt by sepsis, an infection that tore through her body with devastating speed. The tragedy was deepened by its timing. It coincided with the 70th birthday of her beloved father, Prince Arthur, Duke of Connaught, a man who cherished his eldest daughter with a tenderness that transcended his stoic royal demeanor. Margaret's final days had been marked by a cascade of health struggles. She had contracted measles, a disease far more perilous in 1920 than modern medicine might suggest, its effects weakening her already fragile constitution. The illness aggravated a chronic ear condition that had troubled her for years, causing persistent pain and prompting doctors to perform a mastoidectomy, a delicate surgery to remove infected portions of the mastoid bone behind her ear. In an era when antibiotics were yet to be discovered, such procedures carried immense risk, and infection control was a gamble at best. By the previous Sunday, April 25th, Margaret's condition had worsened, with sharp pain radiating across her face, particularly beneath her eyes, a troubling sign that alarmed her physicians. They opted for another surgical intervention, hoping to halt the infection's spread, but by Thursday, April 29th, a new and ominous symptom emerged. Erysipelas, a bacterial skin infection, manifested as a fiery red rash beneath her right ear. By Friday evening, the unmistakable signs of sepsis, high fever, debilitating weakness, and a body overwhelmed by infection had taken hold. Despite the desperate efforts of her doctors, Margaret's strength ebbed away, and within hours she was gone, leaving behind her husband, Prince Gustav Adolf, their 5 children, and a 6th child, 8 months in the womb, who would never know her mother's embrace. The news reverberated through the royal courts of Britain and Sweden, striking like a thunderbolt. Margaret was no ordinary royal. She was a beacon of warmth, her kindness and grace touching everyone from palace staff to the ordinary Swedes who adored her. In Sweden, where she had won hearts as the crown princess, the grief was almost tangible, a collective mourning for a woman who had become a national treasure. During the traditional May Day celebration, Prime Minister Hjalmar Branting, his voice heavy with sorrow, addressed the nation, declaring the ray of sunshine at Stockholm Palace has gone out. For Prince Arthur, far away in England, the loss was a personal devastation, his milestone birthday forever tainted by the unbearable absence of his daughter. The suddenness of Margaret's death sparked a flurry of rumors, as grief often gives rise to speculation. In Britain, where she had once been a celebrated princess, some whispered that her life in Sweden had been one of quiet discontent. The formalities of the Swedish court, they speculated, or perhaps the long, harsh Nordic winters, had dimmed the vibrant spirit of a woman born into the bustling world of Queen Victoria's family. More sinister rumors, utterly unfounded, suggested suicide, a cruel fabrication that ignored the clear medical evidence of her illness and the profound love she showed for her family and her adopted nation. These murmurs, born in the fog of mourning, eventually dissipated, unable to withstand the reality of her dedication and the documented tragedy of her final days. Yet they reflected the public's fascination with a woman who seemed to embody both resilience and fragility, a princess who had navigated the complexities of royal life with a quiet strength that captivated all who knew her. Margaret, ever thoughtful, had prepared for the possibility of her passing with a clarity that spoke to both her practicality and her sentimentality. In 1914, 6 years before her death, she had penned detailed instructions for her burial, a testament to her desire to leave this world on her own terms. She wanted no ostentatious ceremony, no prolonged public mourning. Her wishes were specific and poignant. She was to be laid to rest in the wedding gown she had worn on her marriage to Prince Gustav Adolf in 1905, a flowing dress of white silk and lace that had symbolized the joy of their union. The delicate veil that had framed her face on that day was to drape her once more, a tender nod to the love that had defined her life in Sweden. In her hand, she requested a simple cross, a symbol of her deep Christian faith, which had guided her through both triumphs and trials. Her coffin, she stipulated, was to be crafted from English oak, its unadorned simplicity reflecting her humility, yet adorned with the flags of Britain and Sweden, a tribute to the two nations she had united through her marriage and her life. She explicitly forbade a lying in state, sparing her family and her subjects the pain of a drawn-out farewell. Initially, her body was placed in Storkirken, the ancient cathedral adjacent to Stockholm's royal palace, its soaring arches and solemn atmosphere a fitting temporary resting place for a princess so deeply loved. Later, her remains were moved to the royal cemetery at Haga Park in Solna, a tranquil haven she and Gustav Adolf had chosen together. The cemetery, nestled among trees and gentle hills, mirrored Margaret's love for nature, its serene beauty a lasting tribute to her spirit. Margaret's death was a profound personal loss, but her influence extended far beyond the confines of her final moments, shaping the future of Sweden's monarchy in ways that few could have anticipated. The years following World War I were a precarious time for European monarchies. The war had upended old orders, with revolutions toppling crowns in Russia, Germany, and Austria-Hungary, and democratic movements gaining ground across the continent. In Sweden, the monarchy faced its own challenges, its relevance questioned in a society increasingly drawn to egalitarian ideals. Margaret, with her forward-thinking perspective and genuine warmth, became a linchpin in preserving the crown's place in Swedish life. She embraced reform with a sincerity that resonated with the public, supporting initiatives that modernized the monarchy's image and aligned it with the aspirations of a new era. Whether through her tireless charity work, her engaging public appearances, or her quiet conversations with ordinary Swedes, she had a rare ability to connect with people on a human level. Her presence softened the edges of political tensions, fostering a sense of unity at a time when division loomed large. She wasn't merely a consort adorned with a title. She was a bridge between the monarchy's storied past and a progressive future, ensuring that the Swedish crown remained a symbol of continuity rather than an outdated relic. Her efforts helped stabilize the institution during a critical juncture, earning her a place in history as a guardian of the monarchy's enduring relevance. Her legacy was equally profound in the realm of family, where her influence shaped the next generation of European royalty. As the mother of Prince Gustav Adolf, she raised a son who would ascend the Swedish throne as King Gustav VI Adolf, a monarch celebrated for his intellectual rigor and steadfast commitment to his people. Margaret's approach to motherhood was groundbreaking for a royal of her time. Unlike many of her peers, who delegated parenting to governesses and tutors, she was deeply involved in her children's lives, spending hours reading to them, encouraging their curiosity, and instilling values of duty, compassion, and humility. Her 5 children, Gustav Adolf, Sigvard, Ingrid, Bertil, and Carl Johan, grew up under her attentive care, each shaped by her warmth and wisdom. Her daughter Ingrid carried her mother's legacy forward, becoming Queen of Denmark and mother to Queen Margaret II, who in turn gave birth to King Frederick X, Denmark's reigning monarch, as of 2025. Through her children and grandchildren, Margaret's bloodline wove through the royal houses of Europe, connecting the crowns of Sweden and Denmark in a lineage that endures to this day. Her hands-on parenting style, so unusual for a princess, set a new standard for royal families, demonstrating that love and involvement could coexist with the demands of duty. Her influence on her children was not just personal but dynastic, ensuring that her values of service and connection lived on in the monarchs who followed. Margaret's passions extended beyond politics and family, leaving a cultural legacy that continues to resonate. She was an ardent gardener, her love for the natural world evident in the lush landscapes she cultivated around her homes. Her gardens were not mere hobbies, but living works of art, carefully designed to reflect both beauty and harmony. Her talent is immortalized in the Crown Princess Margareta rose, a vibrant, fragrant bloom that captures the essence of a woman who brought color and life to everything she touched. Margaret was also a gifted artist, her books on gardening filled with her own illustrations, delicate, precise sketches of flowers, leaves, and landscapes that revealed her keen eye and creative spirit. These works were more than decorative. They were a window into her soul, blending her love for nature with a talent for capturing its fleeting beauty. Her books remain cherished artifacts, their pages a testament to her artistic legacy. In 2021, Stockholm's Royal Palace opened an exhibition titled Daisy, Crown Princess Margareta, 1882 to 1920, a heartfelt tribute to her life that drew thousands of visitors. The exhibit showcased her drawings, her gardening manuals, and personal mementos that revealed the woman behind the title, a mother, an artist, a reformer whose warmth still lingered in the hearts of Swedes. The display was a powerful reminder of her enduring place in Sweden's cultural memory, a celebration of a life that, though brief, left an indelible mark. Margaret's life ended far too soon, at the age of 38, her body succumbing to an infection that even the best doctors of the time could not defeat. She was 8 months pregnant with her 6th child, a loss that compounded the tragedy for her family and her nation. Yet, in her 38 years, she lived with an intensity and purpose that few could match. From her youth as one of Europe's most eligible princesses, courted by kings and princes, to her transformative role as Sweden's crown princess, she embodied a rare blend of grace and grit. Her support for reform during the volatile post-war years strengthened a monarchy at a crossroads, ensuring its survival in a changing world. Her devotion to her children laid the foundation for a new generation of royals, her influence echoing through the thrones of Sweden and Denmark. Her gardens and her art, vibrant and enduring, continue to inspire, a testament to a woman who found beauty in the everyday and shared it with the world. Her death was a moment of profound loss, but her life was a gift, a fleeting burst of light that warmed 2 nations and left behind a legacy of kindness, resilience, and quiet strength that endures to this day. We've reached the end for today. Be sure to click the like button, share your thoughts below, and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content. Thanks for tuning in.